Well, good morning and welcome to Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best made. Another loaded show and plenty to talk about coming on your way. That's right, coming your way in 3, 2, 1. Let's roll the open. Here we go.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughn. Baseball's best made all year round. From the batter's box to the mound.
Well, and here he is on your screen in the middle. Good morning to you, sir. We got this thing down to a science. We go on the air, and
some fiasco happened.
The S hits the fan, as I like to say. First off, good morning to you. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you.
Good Friday. We've got through. Wow, we almost thought we got through the week of the hub with unscathed, but proves to not be the point. So
here's our show rundown once again, folks. It's loaded with all kinds of greats. There's some stats and.
Just throw that in the bin, folks. Throw that in the bin.
What we were going to talk about today, and first off, we're glad you're along, watching us throughout North America, and we have a lot of you folks, which a majority of you folks across the great country of Australia. And what our original plan was to go through and talk about the Brisbane Hub, the excitement of the Adelaide Ball Club, maybe Brisbane waking up last night, the Heat, sort of what their situation was, the Canberra game yesterday, and all those things in the Hub and TV and all. But that all kind of got blown out of the water a few minutes ago because we just heard, and most of you probably saw this the last half hour. I watched it live over here. That Queensland's going into or Greater Brisbane, not Queensland the state, but the Greater Brisbane metro area was going into a 3-day weekend lockdown, early weekend over there, which usually that means the dominoes will start to fall, and that's where we're at. So there'll be no sport this weekend, we assume, because that's actually what the Premier said. Local travel was going to be restricted to your neighborhood, to the shops, get supplies, but that's pretty much it. There's been no announcement for the league partner, but I guess my first question is your initial reaction to seeing that news when you woke up in the West this morning.
I think one of the hard parts, particularly in WA, is like the trickle-down effect tends to be that then the Premier of Western Australia, Mark McGowan, likes to shut our border on any given opportunity on a whim. So I think kind of what I sort of what I feel like could really happen, escalate quite quickly. This 3-day lockdown that's happening in Brisbane now could very quickly lead to a Western Australia border shutdown, 14-day isolation, which then sort of means that, hopefully South Australia's border kind of stays firm. We don't know because I guess right now we don't know the extent of the Brisbane outbreak. We know it's the it's the new one, DV, that's reared its ugly head, the mutant strain out of the UK, which has kind of got out into Brisbane. So they've got a 3-day lockdown now. Everyone has to be home from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the greater Brisbane area, which would include where the ballpark is as well. So whether they can get these day games through, they probably can. I don't know whether they'll go a crowd, but they might be able to get. Today's the last day though, so we've been told there's no sport on the weekend. Right. But whether they get an exemption or I'm not sure. But it again, DV, we just seem to get out of those choppy waters. And last night, I actually thought yesterday was great because we had the double dip going on. We had the Melbourne Aces and Canberra Cavalry game going on as well up there in the capital. Looked a little chilly in the capital last night as well, but look, it was good, and I watched them all on KO, and we had the two games going simultaneously, and I thought like, wow, this thing is actually like kicking along all right. So.
Yeah, and for the first time, I felt like the season was in full swing. I mean, we do game notes for Talking Baseball Australia from a Heat perspective for Heat fans and also for ABL fans. We provide the scouting reports and stat reports for the field staff. And it's really the first time I had more to look at than just one game or one sample size and looking at all the things going on and then seeing the highlights come in last night from Canberra. I woke up this morning thinking, okay, it's a normal ABL experience. And then this happens. It's interesting, too. This morning, about midday in North America, the same UK strain hit Texas. And it also hit some points in South Florida as well in North America. So that was already, and I didn't think much about it at the time. I kind of thought, well, okay, well, it's life in COVID, right? I mean, it's what we do. And then boom, I'm actually, and this is a true story. I'm actually posting a promotion for the show on all of our different mates' pages. This is where I saw the news break across my phone. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's this? And it's weird because I felt like a normal ABL week. It felt like, okay. And I even remember today doing the game notes for this weekend. Finally, you have 5 games in the books. There's some trends starting to develop, not big ones, but some small ones. And boom, here you go. We're right there back to this point again. A couple things. By the way, Stuart says you need some coffee. Did you not get some coffee?
I do need coffee. It's only 7:15 here, so it's an early start on Friday. So
5:30. Still coffee here in the afternoon here.
Try to cram in a bit of show preppers at 5 o'clock and see what happens.
Rod says, "Good day, mate. Morning, Paul. Good to see you, Rod." Drew,
good to see you, Drewy.
And then Jared says, send the other 3 teams to Canberra, the hub there, and complete the Brisbane hub, and then the season can continue. I'm not going to throw this man's name out there, but I did get a message from a executive in the league because I did not actually say I didn't tell him I would say his name or anything like that, but I was actually in tongue in cheek. We actually said back and forth that, well, Canberra may be the only place folks will be able to go. I mean, maybe it turns into after all, a Canberra experience, perhaps. I also reached out, just so you know, we reached out in the last half hour to the folks in Perth. They have no plans yet to travel to Adelaide, but of course, it's just past 7 a.m. in the West, mid-morning there. They've got basically till 6 o'clock this evening to get out of there. So that I'm sure that decision will come fairly quickly. It did last time. I was actually messaging back and forth with the league a couple of hours ago about possible announcements. And what I can tell you this is a breaking news sort of, but they expected a Tuesday announcement for the future of the season as far as what postseason might look like, what was going to be done with the Heat, Canberra, the games that didn't get played, what was going to happen there. And there was some sort of momentum going in that direction. I think the feeling was, from what I understand, was things are going so good in the hub. We all felt pretty good. Fingers crossed. We get to the weekend. They'll reshuffle the deck, update us on playoff possibilities, as that's not really been announced yet and how that will figure in. But now this curveball, I think now we may be in a situation where back we started again, maybe behind the 8 ball again, partner.
Yeah, I think the next choice in the ABL needs to be a destination where majority teams can go to. We know it's probably going to be hard for the Blue Sox and not a full line through the Blue Sox this season, but definitely the biggest question marks against the Blue Sox. But if it is Canberra, if it is Adelaide, I think Perth is becoming less and less viable as time goes on, just based on the history of border closures. So I'd love it to be in Perth, but I think that's a less and less of an option. GM suggested New Zealand. Unfortunately, the Australia-New Zealand border is closed as well, so we can't do NZ. So look, I think if it's Canberra, great. If it's Adelaide, great. I mean, we know the ticket sales have been really good for the Adelaide hub as well. As it stands, I think South Australia's border is relatively flexible to allow it to happen. There are a lot of secondary fields. We know that there's the mighty Glenelg team down the road, the Gunslingers. Tigers or Gunslingers? I can't remember. Gunslingers.
Gunslingers, right.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Our mate Boz. So I mean, look, there are other fields. There's probably more. There might be more facilities to train for other teams in Adelaide, just so if you want to do some more infield work, et cetera, then Adelaide might become a bit more of a viable option over Canberra. But I'm with Drew as well. Love to see some games in Perth. I think it's going to be harder just based on border restrictions in WA, but we know that. But look, if Melbourne stay out of, they're in the ACT right now. If they buy some time in the ACT, if they head to Adelaide, buy some time there. As long as they don't shut the border to Brisbane, Perth still becomes a possibility. We know, we said it a couple of weeks ago on the show. Originally, the plan was to roll that hub from Brisbane into Adelaide. finish it in Perth, including the finals in Perth as well.
Right.
That was that was version whatever
30.
742, but so that was in the plans. But I think now, I guess you just have to sit and wait and sort of hope that hope that maybe Perth becomes a viable option, or if not, I'm assuming you got to kind of toss the coin between Adelaide and Canberra, even though Melbourne's back on track and whatnot, but it's still probably a little tough to go there. But boy, I mean, who knows, DV?
Yeah, it's in hindsight, obviously 2020. I mean, we can go back and rehash this thing over and over again. My knee jerk is I'm very proud of what the league's tried to do. I mean, they've tried at every turn. I mean, they zigged and zagged and made the move here and there. Have you ever had a situation, partner, in your life where every move you made just wasn't the right one? I mean, I use I like to use the blackjack analogy there in Vegas, where I think I'm doing the right thing. I'll split my eights and dang it, I lose both hands. Or I split my aces and dang it, whatever. And I think that's kind of what we're going through. We're in that stretch of the cards where it just keeps snowballing on us.
Well, the hard part for the ABL as well is up in Queensland, they basically hosted the entire AFL season, which was in winter, and the talks of the virus spreads quicker in colder weather and whatnot, and they've hit a snag up in Brisbane for the first time, first community transmitted case I think in Brisbane over the last 100 odd days as well. So it's just an unfortunate parts of events that have led to sort of another roadblock, but. It'll be interesting what happens, but I think from here, DV, you kind of have to stop. You have to reassess it, and probably your next choice from an ABL point of view has to be like, we're all in on this one final location. I'm just not sure that you can move it again. I think you have to just go.
Well, we're in January 9 and 10th coming up this weekend, and the finals are less than a month away, basically. You've got a real narrow window. Now, there is one development here I'll give you that will buy you some time from a North American perspective. You may have seen this, as Chris mentions, about, unfortunately, New Zealand's options not possible because of the ballot system and the hotels. I think New Zealand would have been a great option initially, but never to go there and wait for 2 weeks. I mean, I think any place would have been a great option for a total league-wide hub. I think that's obviously the hindsight 2020. But from a North American perspective, I don't know if you saw this, and I tweeted this out from our Twitter account. Major League Baseball has moved the AA and lower classification spring training into latter March and April. Usually, pitchers and catchers report, middle of February, first week of February, and then you got, your AAA guys usually there as well. And then usually your AA guys are there around that tail end of February. They've moved those AA guys into mid-March, later March. Those A-ball kids who are usually there mid-March are probably going to be looking at maybe even an April spring training date, pushing the possible minor league baseball season as the new look minor league season into May, which has been talked about already. That does buy you some time because a lot of these prospects who want to get back to North America and play for their affiliated ball clubs, and that includes Australian players. You think of the guys, the guys that are signed with the Phillies and with the Tigers and whoever, and then also got your players that are over there right now, the North American players. They're not going to start their spring training unless they're in the big league 40-man or they're a AAA for sure, slotted for AAA. Anybody younger than that, AA on down, which is pretty much the majority of the players, are going to have spring training starting later. That date's not been announced yet, but that does buy you maybe a week to 10 days in the back end. But again, you're starting to get to latter February, and that's starting to get into spring training when Major League Baseball kicks in, and that's just not an option. So you're kind of you're right there, partner. It's that final throw, that final chance to really the last stand of the OK Corral, so to speak. It's the last one. It's at where we're at.
Drinking at Last Chance Saloon.
Yeah, so maybe an older Heat game should get going. Be great for it. Yeah, I like that, Robert.
And I think because unfortunately, if they don't come to town now, the Team Spencer game was scheduled for when the Melbourne Aces came into town against the Perth Heat as well. So if that doesn't go ahead, I mean, we all are buying the Team Spencer hat and getting behind Team Spencer as well. So I think it'd be, and also the Greg Jelks Foundation as well. So I think, I think you'll definitely see some things going on in Perth. I know what's happening. There will be broadcast baseball. I believe it's next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the 16s and the 18s in Perth, who are currently doing the Tampa Bay Rays talent showcase, or the showcase for the 16s and 18s, which is happening down in Drewry's Field at the moment, which is doing a great job. Looks pristine. There will be broadcast baseball of that as well on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I believe. I hope it is, because I'm doing the broadcast.
I was going to ask who's doing the broadcast.
So I'm doing the broadcast. So I hope it is on those days, because that's what I've scheduled around. So yeah, but I think there will be other things as well going on, and I think every team will do that. I know the Blue Sox. I saw something for the Sydney Blue Sox that the Sydney Blue Sox had. They've got something along the lines of a charity game going. I think this weekend as well. So they've got not a charity game, maybe just an inter-club. So I think everyone will do, because at the end of the day, also, like, all the teams who want to put they want to do something to put a few bucks in the coffers as well. So.
Yeah, Jared mentions, and I was going to scatter shoot with that toward the tail of the show. Mentioned the Greg Jelks passing, which I remember that very vividly, and we both were touched by him and the whole situation. But that was 4 years. It still seems like, you know what? I would normally say it seems like yesterday, but with this 2020 we just went through, it seems like about 20 years ago now. But yeah, that part of the Greg Jelks, that all coming down, it's all happening. And we talking about that game as well. And it was cool to see the showcase kids. I was trying to get that word out, what they did in tribute for him as well in the field. Thanks for joining us. You're Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate. I'm Dan Vaughn. That's Paul Morgan. We get thrown a curve again, and what we do is we adjust the batter's box. We step out and step back in again. We were going to talk a lot more detail about what happened in the hub, and we're going to get that a little bit. I'm going to jump into that for a moment. If you do have a comment, please fire it away there. If you want to jump on, the link is there. I'm going to go ahead and go kind of where we were heading initially, and I got to tell you, first off, let's just go with the whole Brisbane hub headline. To me, is how soon that hub can change. We were talking 2 days ago that Perth was 2-0 in the thing, and all they had to do was play on house money, and then, oh my goodness, they lose a game that they probably should have won, and suddenly they lose 2. They're back to 2-2. Here comes Adelaide at 3-1, and boy, all of a sudden Adelaide looks pretty sharp. The more I watch Adelaide, the more I begin to realize, of course, this is the Wingrove home run that walked it off for him, a 3-run shot 2 nights ago, or 2 days ago, actually, 3-run home run. By the way, do you guys notice this? See those guys in the background? Who are those? Was that the Brisbane grounds crew cheering for them? I'm going to rewind that. I want to bring that. I meant to kind of focus. Let me play it again for you guys. Let's see if you guys see that. In the back, in the corner of the screen, is that Brisbane's grounds crew cheering for Adelaide? Is that what they're doing? Watch them. There they are. Look at them going nuts there. They're all high-fiving. Is that the grounds? Anyway.
It was a good shot, though. I mean, it was a real good shot. It was.
But my question is to you, when Adelaide rebounds, goes 3-1 at the midpoint of the hub, which is obviously probably going to be on hold, I want to throw this question out to you guys. And I don't think I realized this until maybe watching them over and over again. I watched their highlights, look at their numbers, and did some more research, some digging. But I'm kind of thinking the best 2 young Aussie prospects, bang, in any club at the moment. I mean, there's going to be some arguments here, but I think we slept a little bit on Rickson Wingrove and Curtis Mead. I mean, those 2 Phillies farmhands, both 20 years old. And here's the deal about these 2 guys. And I don't know if you realize this, guys, and folks watching this across Australia, but these 2 gentlemen have had some success in the ABL, but their numbers in North America, pretty dadgum good. Now, granted, they haven't had a chance, and this is where we talked about missing the 2020 U.S. season was really detrimental to a lot of young prospects from Australia, not just North American, but Australian prospects. And both these guys, Wingrove in rookie ball hit 298, and then Mead in rookie ball, same club. They were actually on different clubs, Phillies East, Phillies West, in the Gulf Coast League, hit 285. And Mead hit 4 home runs, drove in 19. and then Wingrove hit 5, drove in 37. Those two young men, have I just been sleeping on those two guys and not been paying attention? I mean, are we not doing our due diligence as Talking Baseball Australia to say, wait, these two guys might be the best young dynamite duo of any club in the ABL? I'm sure everybody will argue with us on that one, but what do you think about that?
No, I think you're right. I think last year Curtis Mead had a really good year in the ABL as well, and I think that was his emergent. Rickson Wingrove didn't probably have a stronger year last year in the ABL, but I think it's amazing now, and we talk about the nucleus of the Australian team and where the Australian team goes in the future, and you start to look at these guys like Rickson Wingrove and Curtis Mead, clearly two big parts of the future. I think I've slept on Wingrove for sure. I always thought Mead had something pretty great, and watching Wingrove a bit more, you start to, and then as you say, DV, you look at his numbers with a more of a full body cycle and more at bats in the US, and you go, boy, I think this is something special. So you look at now you start looking at Wingrove, Mead, to complement probably the future. I mean, Aaron Whitehead has obviously made it to the big league level, but these guys coming out of Adelaide, and then you've got the Bajowskis and Halls coming out of the West, and you start there's some pretty handy really handy position players coming out of Australia now, DV.
Yes, they are, and I'll give it a couple of comments. Stuart says no Klogowski or John Stone for the pitching staff. Yeah, and I had that note, and Stuart and I talked back and forth this week. And remember, Adelaide, even though they dropped the first two, or not first two, the first one to Perth, Stuart and I talked about that. They're also missing the import Fitch, who's a catcher, and Baylor as well. Those are guys that were supposed to be big parts of things. They were still in quarantine. They still haven't in their lineup. John still has some significant weapons in the arsenal. They haven't, and that's the thing. When Stuart actually threw this out to me, and I thought, let me look at those numbers. I went back and looked, and that's what I jumped out at me. Wait a second. And I'm watching the highlights again, and I got to admit, sometimes you don't always watch every inning, every bat, every game. But I started watching every at bat those two guys, Wingrove and Mead, had, and they don't. Not only do they're good, they look like prospects.
Yeah.
I mean, they look like guys that know what they're doing. They look like there's a certain look to a prospect. And I can't really give you more than just there's a certain eye test you do, and there's an eye test there. Not analytics, it's eye test. They look like it. Ethan says here, let's see here. Curtis Mead at OPS is 783 across 531 plate appearances between the minors and ABL. Given a solid defense over the diamond, looks like he absolute stud. And that's the thing. I mean, again, that's my eye test. I'm looking at those guys going, wait, they're both Phillies farmhands? In the back of my mind, I thought, well, one of these guys has got to be an import. I mean, because the Phillies are sending all these players over, but I'm like, no, these two are the future. And I think you bring a good point up. I mean, we talk about the veteran Australian contingent, but this next wave is pretty exciting. My dog just goes nuts here. I guess he's mad about Queensland.
He's excited.
He's
but if you look at, I mean, if you were running Team Australia right now, and who knows if the Olympics is going to happen or not, but the World Baseball Classic again is going to come soon. I mean, do you think when you look at Wingrove, you look at Mead, you look at obviously Robbie Glendining's already made it there. You look at Ulrich Bajowski, you look at these guys. Do you almost start going, give the kids? It's the kids' team now. Do you almost look at that and go?
Yeah. Think about what happened in Perth. What was it, 15? I get my years messed up. I mean, 15, 16, when Matt Kennelly took over that 1 year as manager, and they basically when D-San went to Melbourne, and they threw Alex Hall out there, who had basically we knew him because he played, locally, but he hadn't even signed with the Brewers yet. Ulrich, Bajowski just had signed, but hadn't gone over yet. He was still a very raw prospect. Jess Williams hadn't signed yet. Now, these guys signed the course of that next year. They signed during the year, but they threw these guys out there and said, you know what? And Luke Hughes was still there, and Matt Kennelly and Tim Kennelly were still, Matt was player manager. They just went out there and threw these young guys out there and said, you know what? We're going to roll with these guys. and that also included some young pitchers. Tom Bailey had already had a pretty good year the year before, but you had a guy who threw out Bailey out there. And, Connor Lowry is another guy who threw out there in the rotation. He was going out every fourth day. There was some young guys that were throwing out there, but those three gentlemen in particular, three young guys, and this is when Robbie Glendenning was still in Missouri. He hadn't even come home yet, so Robbie was waiting in the wings. They threw those three guys out there. When Robbie was ready, you had a nice nucleus when those guys had a couple years under their belts. And I think it's the same principle for Team Australia. I mean, you almost have to throw them out there now and say, you know what, we may make it, we may not. I don't know. And our veteran guys deserve a chance at a medal, but same situation in Perth that year. Luke won another Claxton Shield. TK did. But they just come off having that great success, but they kind of pulled the Band-Aid off and went young and let those older guys help mold those younger guys. And you're almost going to do the same thing with Team Australia. Keep getting younger. So maybe 5-6 years from now, you're right there where you need to be. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think you're right on there, partner.
And I'm spot on, indeed. And Ethan, and I felt that I hadn't had my coffee this morning, but I remember when I was looking at Curtis, when we're talking Curtis Mead, I was like, now Curtis is a Tampa Bay Ray now.
Right. He was originally.
Like,
I met with. He's originally a Phillies farm. His last numbers came from the Phillies and the GCL. But yes, he was traded. And that's something we talked about. I believe a couple weeks ago we talked about the Rays prospects that maybe they'd be future teammates with Curtis with the Rays organization. So yes, we do stand with correcting that.
But there's actually also just on that. There's someone on Twitter, Matt Germain, who's a Rays insider, and he speaks enthusiastically about Curtis Mead. So I think his ceiling is bright. But and Stuart brings up a good point here. And I wonder this part with obviously runners on first and second, how much that the old international tiebreaker, your friend DV. I mean, how much does that throw off pitches with those?
Well, in that ball game, remember the week getting before, the Heat got infield pop up in
three outs and two pitches.
1-6-3 double play. I want to play that. I'm going to pull that video up again. I want to see that picture. That's a good point Stuart made. I probably should have said something. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's so small on the screen. I don't want to bring Paul. I'll bring Paul off for a moment, but I want you guys to look at what he's talking about, because again, it's a very good point that Stuart makes. Anyone can hit a mistake, right? Sort of. But not everybody can hit a mistake. That's why guys get away with pitches all the time. I think one thing you see a young prospect when he sees a mistake or a pitch is in the right spot, he capitalizes. And you're going to see that right there. I want you guys to see where this pitch is. I'm going to pull it, Paul, off. I want you guys to see where this pitch is here. This is again, you look again. I'm going to bring that back again. Hawley's set up outside there. I'll give you one more shot at it here. Oops, sorry about that. Let's get it one more time here. Let's back it up here. Well, you get the point, though. You guys saw what I'm talking about. Let's bring Paul back. You can hear me, partner? You got me back? You can hear me now? Okay, good. Yep. Yeah, but you see where that again, Hall just sort of was rocking away, and that ball comes, in right in the hands, or right there where you want, not in the hands, really more right in the trademark. He didn't miss. And what you're seeing a prospect do maturing beyond his years, when you make a mistake, he doesn't miss it. Maybe in rookie ball, year 1, year 2, you can probably get away with that. But you're watching a young man mature beyond his years. Yes, that pitch wasn't probably where he wanted it, but you didn't miss it. And as a batter, you can't miss that. And he didn't miss it. And I think that's a very good point Stuart makes right there on there. But good stuff right there. Really good stuff. Also, let's see here. Ethan says Tampa has excellent talent evaluations. There's a lot. Yes. Tampa, they like you. Interesting story, Ethan. Paul, you know this story. I was at spring training 2 springs ago in Port Charlotte, and we were standing. It was myself, Lachlan Dale, who's the baseball operations director of the Heat, and then Dean White, former Heater. We were all standing there at spring training, what they call the backfields. You got your big league field, the backfields. We're standing there watching. There's 4 games going on. got different games going. We were kind of walking back and forth from it's like a municipal softball complex with 4 fields. So you can kind of, and there's in the middle there's like a little tower with a concession stand and a bathroom. And there's like a tower. Well, here was the deal: all your old time scouts, the old guys in their pullovers or their uniforms or the old school guys, they were all up there kind of holding court. The young guys were all down there kind of arms crossed on their tablets. And Tampa had a real mix of older scouts doing their thing and their younger, and they were all doing their thing. And the younger guys were running around. They were, doing analytics. So they had a couple of machines set up, doing some kind of machines. They were videos. Instead of shooting from up top, they were shooting from both sides. And they were doing all kinds of tracking. They had a pitch tracker that was tracking spin rate and all that. That was all going on in the backfields of minor leagues. And so I think what you're saying there, I echo what you're saying, Ethan, is that the Rays are going they're going young technology and the young route. They still got their veteran scouts, but they're going the young route there. Let's see here. Steve says, was it really
the international tiebreaker?
Well, yeah, yes, the home run made a difference. The walks preceded it. But in an international tiebreaker, you have no choice but to put those guys on base. So, yes, the walks hurt the Heat in that ball game in the 7th. Yes, because that was a problem. That's why the Heat wound up getting tied. A couple of walks and a hit by pitch. But the home run in that ball game, the walk-off home run, that was you're forced to put the last 2 batters aboard, and you start with 2 runners on and nobody out. So those 2 were not forced walks. They're not charged earned runs as well, but a good point. James says, is Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth going to come to Adelaide early? Yeah, and that's James, we were talking about that a few minutes ago. In case you missed the breaking news at the top of the show, Queensland's going into Brisbane, I keep saying Greater Brisbane is going into a 3-day long weekend lockdown at 6 p.m. local time today, which that would be in Perth time would be, what is that going to be? 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So Wade Paul and I understand. Right now they're fine, but the Western Australia Premier comes out and says, "Hey, we're locking down, or not locking down. We're having a travel restriction on the border down. Yeah, it's a better word. Then there's an issue. It's a gamble. Last time the Heat traveled in advance and made it to Queensland before that issue happened. My guess is, and I'm guessing here, but I think, partner, you're probably right there with me. WA will probably shut that border down, and I imagine the Heat will hightail it as fast as they can to Adelaide, assuming the league wants to keep the season going."
Yeah, they're spot on. Look, I think the league. I think it'll be. If I was to look in a crystal ball, I still believe that it's going to be. Like you're going to get your final hub in Adelaide. Whether whether Canberra and also Melbourne can make it through into their hub as well. Time will tell. But I think, and I said it at the top of the show as well, I think the ABL now have to think final destination. I mean, it is the 8th of January. 14-day quarantine isn't possible this time of the year now to keep the season, really going. So if it's Adelaide, if it's Canberra, somehow if they get exemptions for everyone and it's WA or it's who knows where, Lismore maybe there's a great facility up in Lismore. Maybe they get out of, and that's the thing. Maybe they get out of Brisbane and head a couple of hours or whatever to Lismore. There's all the state championships are up there. Maybe I think they spent $8 million on the facility up at Lismore. So maybe they head up to Lismore, and that's where it goes. That's where the road show goes, folks.
Jared says
it's like the old traveling. It's the old, like, you remember you saw those old traveling salesmen put in the in the movies that take the briefcase, start in Texas, do the lap of the map. And
you ever heard the Johnny Cash song, "I've been everywhere, man, yeah. I've been everywhere, man"? He names all these towns off, in Albuquerque, Omaha, it's the same thing. I've been everywhere, man. So we get singing on this show. Jared, good point. Yeah, that hit by pitch that scored the tying run. It was close. It was down around the bat barrel, around the bottom of the handle, the knob, anyway. I thought it hit his hands, but again, I didn't break it down into 4 or 5, 8K, I guess you could say. We're going to move to Canberra. I'm going to do you something here, and I have that in the script. I'm going to go ahead and keep fighting through this because we're kind of getting derailed a little bit with the breaking news there. But this is courtesy ABL. I want to fire this up. These are our mates over in Canberra, and I love hearing these two gentlemen. And I'm going to go ahead and have the Nat sound for a moment. So here are the highlights, courtesy ABL. This was last night for those Canberra Cavs, and this is the boys on the air right here. I'm going to go and play this for you guys.
Middleton, curveball, and he's going to get down for a base hit. Monroe will score. Perkins is being held up. Everybody turns around and goes back.
Good call.
But this game is tied on a one-out RBI single from Jack Middleton. 2 out, bases loaded for the Cavalry. Here's the pitch from Kennedy. Into right field, that's going to drop, base hit. One will score. Lutz is being held up, and Gope turns around. And Reynolds, what a time to get a big base hit for Canberra. They now lead this game 2-1.
Jared Dale is well and truly over in shallow right field, and Lutz. Ground ball into the gap left by the shift. This will score Robbie Perkins. Lutz might round second. He gets halfway there, turns around, comes back. Throw is held up, but Robbie Perkins comes home. Cavalry lead 3-1.
The payoff from Stoker. Right there. Can't watch that one, mate. The pitch to George. He's hit that out to right field. Lutz is coming around. He's got to do it. Takes the catch, puts it away. Ball game. Cavalry win 4-2.
There you go. That's the boys there. I love what they do. Those two voices, Waz and Coleman, are mates in Canberra. It felt like, again, that's what I was talking about. It felt like the league was back where it needed to be. You had those boys over watching the national game. For a moment, I thought everything was all fine and dandy, but
I actually really enjoyed. I watched a fair chunk of that game last night. You know, when I think the Brisbane Perth game was done and dusted early on. It was. I really enjoyed that game. I just hats off to Woz and Chris Coleman and Woz who did a call. They made it so much fun, and it was just an enjoyable game to watch. It was a good game as well to watch, but it was. A couple of things as well. And I was going to table this as well with you, DB, because it got me thinking when I was watching Canberra. Last week, I loved their jersey. They had the capital written across their jersey. Last night, they're in the pinstripes. They have to lead the league in uniforms in this season. I don't even think it's close to a second place.
I love what they do with their uniforms, and you and I are big uniform czars. We love the uniform talk, and we have some hot opinions on those this year. I love what they're putting together. I love that look. It looks sharp. In the ball game, Robbie Perkins has set the franchise lead record for doubles. Also in that one, we also saw Mikey Reynolds get the RBI there with the high stirrups. Mikey Reynolds, those good-looking stirrups pulled up like they're supposed to be worn, looking very sharp, not wearing pajama pants, but he's seeing him come over to Canberra as well. And but seeing that last night, a big win. Seeing Donald Lutz in right field, a little odd, and it's also watching him with the RBI, and he was pointing across the way. It's still odd to see Big Donald in a Canberra. I mean, there's certain players. I remember seeing D. San Miguel in a Melbourne kit. We were kind of like, it looked kind of strange. Lutz is the same thing. Lutz looks really odd in right field in Canberra because that's not – I'm thinking he's a Brisbane Bandit hitting the ball in the ballpark in Queensland, in Newmarket. It just was funny to see that. But some thoughts on the game right there. I said that, and this is, again, we're having to say this with what's going on behind the scenes, but remember I said a few weeks ago, I could make an argument for dang near every team to be competitive and maybe make a statement in this league. And watching Canberra, I kind of like what they got together too. I like all these teams. There's something wrong with me. I don't know.
And I think Melbourne's the one team that haven't quite like I thought. I honestly thought Melbourne would be a complete runaway team this year. I thought that they would. And I thought they might be challenged. Adelaide. I thought Perth was a champ, but I thought Melbourne would be a total runaway team this year. I just felt that they had everything going for them, and they've looked good in patches, but they haven't. I don't think they've necessarily clicked just yet, the Aces, and it's surprising to me because they've got so many good pieces in that team, but I just don't feel that I think we saw it big time in that game, the first game against Perth, the 1-0 victory for the Aces,
Middleton,
and they were
curveball, and he's going to get down for a base hit. Monroe will score. Perkins is being held up. Everybody turns around and goes back.
Good call.
Stuart mentions, and I'm going to show it to you right here on the screen again. There's a hit against the shift in a moment
single from Jack Middleton,
where Lutz is being shifted every time that they played around here. And I think it's right
Here's
here.
The pitch from Kennedy.
No, it's not that. I thought I had it for you guys, but anyway, I think it shows up in a moment. I think it's toward the end of the ball game.
Being held up and
shifted around on it. Watch this perfect piece of hitting.
What a time to get a big base hit for Canberra. They now lead this game 2-1.
Jared Dale is
here. It is right here.
Over in shallow right field, and
there it is.
Ground ball into the gap left
just
by
kind of
the
just
shift.
taps it around.
This will score Robbie Perkins. Lutz might round second. He gets halfway there, turns around, comes back.
I love what I see.
But Robbie Perkins comes home.
Several things, but I love being surprised on the suicide squeeze. I love that. I love the hit and run, and I love when somebody hits against the shift that it rolls like that, kind of harmlessly. I love those moments, and that was a great moment for Donald Lutz last night. A veteran move right there.
Almost that bunt against the shift that turns into a double is always fun too. That sort of punch down third baseline, just turns instead you get yourself a double. Or I love when someone's someone's running to third base. There's no one covering third base as well, so they can't make a throw. So it's just anyway. And that's the thing. If you get hit against a shift like that, I mean, that hit is never going to go into his career highlights reel of the greatest hit of Donald Lutz's career, but it's effective, and it's something that if Melbourne continue to do that to Donald Lutz in the series, they're going to have some problems.
Dean Stoker went 7 for the Canberras last night and got 5 strikeouts, got the win, but a nice night overall there as well. I think the shifting is indicative of the change. Yes, I think so. Organizational mindset. It's funny because dang it, doesn't every team do it now? I mean, it's just what you're seeing. I watch Texas quite a bit, and watching Joey Gallo get shifted on every time, and I'm wondering, well, when's he going to lay a bunt down? He did once or twice. Yeah.
And that's what always sort of gets me on the shift so much is you're right. The shift happens so much and so often, but how often, if you take a sample size of most players, 20 at bats, and the shift of the 20 at bats, how many times do you see them still trying to hit the stuffing out of the ball as opposed to doing something different to maybe start, playing the role of okay, well, if this guy's going to bunt or he's going to sort of change his angles and maybe just shunt it through third base side, maybe we should not put the shift on. Then you can go back to your regular programming, but it's just it's interesting.
Very good stuff right there. Ethan also says, this is a good question. By the way, you're watching Talking Baseball Australia Live, Baseball's Best Mate. I'm Dan Vaughn. He's Paul Morgan. And we'd love to hear from you guys. Questions, comments up there in the link somewhere. There is a link to jump on if you want to. The green room's open, but you don't have to. You can just fire away your chats. We're right here to answer your chats and your questions right now. Ethan brings a good point up. The switch from veteran manager Debo to younger D. San Miguel. Again, it's hard to really tell because of the limited sample size, but that's something to watch going forward. He brings up a good point. I don't know if we'd have it. The jury's still out there, but I think he brings up a good point too, saying that D-San's played defense at the ABL a long time. I would trust that he knows his defense and his pitchers. Amen to that. Is there anybody else out there that probably at this current stage knows the ABL side of the pitching than Alan D. San Miguel? I would think he's probably the guy.
No, I think he's 100% the guy that you would know pitchers and hitters better than anyone in the ABL. I don't think there'd be anyone in the current format that would have a better read on it than D-San.
Well, let's move quickly to Perth here because we were talking 2 days ago that they 2-0 play on house money. They look like they're going for 3-0 yesterday. That first one, it was a weird situation, but that 8 a.m. start in the West, they were up 1-0 through 6. Unsworth comes out 5 2/3. He was phenomenal, by the way. I don't think there's a better arm in general, game in and game out, than Dylan Unsworth. He comes out 5 2/3. Bullpen, Strong comes in. Gets out of a jam initially, but then of course, we talked about the bases loaded with the hit by pitch, And then Reininger comes in and gives up the ninth inning extra inning home run, but gets out of an eighth inning jam, not a jam, but the extra innings. To me, the whole day was the Unsworth story. When you don't get a win with Unsworth starting, that's a problem. And now, so far in 2 starts, Unsworth has been fine. The team, though, was exactly 1 run of support as a starter. Now, the team did score 3, but he's got 1 run of support in 9 2/3 innings so far. And the team's 0-2 in his starts. That's not what your ace is. Well, your ace is there to get you a chance to win. The Heat have not delivered on their end of the bargain. Unsworth has.
100%. And that is, as accurate as comes, Stevie. I mean, Dylan Unsworth has given the Heat a position to win both starts, and the offense hasn't fired, and that has been, I guess, from a Heat perspective, that's been an area that they're inconsistent with their offense, and they've been relatively consistent with their pitching, and all their arms have been relatively good outside of Tom Bailey and Schmidt had a rough time of it, obviously, last night against Brisbane, but in that game as well, 3 errors as well, DV. We talked about that a little while ago. Errors sort of playing their part as well, which is, and then a couple of walks killed them as well. And but it's just you spot on. And we talked about it the day before on the post game show that you would assume that on that Adelaide game, the Heat would have loaded up to win that game, then go into the nightcap against Brisbane, and if they win, they win. If they don't, they don't. I thought into the Brisbane game, I thought the Heat looked really tired. I thought they looked completely out of energy. I thought they looked down and out from the get go. I mean, it turned out that like the 12-2 loss will sort of do that to you, but it's but they just never looked in. I think the worrying sign in the Brisbane game, in my opinion, was they never looked like they could get themselves into that game, and that was just probably something that, and tough loss to start with, but then, going up against Brisbane, I would say that the concern I had from a Heat perspective was they just never, ever looked like they could get themselves into that ball game. And that's you hope that momentum doesn't carry, DV.
Stuart mentioned too, when Stuart and I were chatting a bit earlier, Stuart Capel saying that the doubleheader teams are 1-5, and that's always a challenge, but usually you're hoping for a split. It's not really a doubleheader. You're playing 2 games in a day. It's a doubleheader only for one team. It's a day-night, what they call a twilight doubleheader, a day-nighter for one team, other team only playing 1. But again, a couple of factors. Shortened season, every game matters. Number 2, the Heat, and this is for any club, if your ace goes out and gives you 5, 6, whatever, shutout innings, and you only score 1 run in those 9 total, you're in trouble. And that's why, because let me give you the way that the old school thinking. Back in the 70s, the thinking was, okay, this is what you used to see. Cup of coffee guys getting chances in game 4 of a series. You wanted to win your first game of the series, your second game of the series, your third. Now your 4th game, you threw out whoever your bench guys out there. You weren't really worried. You were playing, as we always talk about, on house money. Tom Nieto, former big league catcher, was a former ABLer, played for Melbourne Reds years ago. He was the first manager when I was broadcasting with the Reds organization. He told me, hey, you know what? Back in my day, I got all my at-bats, most of my at-bats. He's a pitch hitter or the 4th day of a series, because usually if you'd won, especially if you won 3 games, you're going to throw everybody out there who hadn't played because you already won the series. The thinking is winning a series. Well, you got to think about this whole hub as winning a hub. And really, those first 4 games were 1 series. These last 4 are 1 series. And when your ace goes and you don't win when your ace goes, that 4th game really was kind of to give everybody, Johnny Allstaff, you're kind of thinking that's probably the one you're going to lose, but you can't lose the first one. And that's the problem. That's where the Heat find themselves against the wall. Yeah, they're playing on house money with Unsworth going out and looking like the part, but they just didn't get the run support for him. That's going to be something to watch going forward. But that's kind of, let's see here. I'm missing a couple things. Let's see here. With the huge scouting departments, the all teams, I would think, analytical decisions. Yes. Let me read it to you guys. With the scouting departments, ML teams, I think analytic decisions like shifting are left up to managers. Leonard's gut more thoughts. Yes and no. I will tell you from an independent ball perspective, and I'll let Paul chime in as well. I know that in general, the Kansas City T-Bones do not play crazy shifts in general. Now they do shift left. They do look at the splits and shift the normal shift, but the over shift, that's something Joe Cappietro, the manager, just doesn't do. Now there's occasion now and then, but in general, they'll do the normal shift, but no wide shift like that. I see in independent ball, it's been a manager's decision. Now I don't know how it is in affiliated ball. I think it's the same way. But in general, for example, Rick Forney or up in Winnipeg, the manager there has tended to play those shifts like that. He's always done that. It's something they've always done. And I think that's kind of a managerial thing. It's like, hey, we're going to over-exaggerate the certain players. And that's kind of been the case. Now, affiliated ball, I think it's probably 50-50. I think it's partly who the manager is and also the organizational's analytical approach. If you're Tampa, you probably play it more. If you're old school, and I'm trying to think of an old school club, I don't know, maybe I can't think of one off the top of my head to really pigeonhole, but an older GM, older approach, you might not do that. Your thoughts on that shift, partner?
Yeah, I think, and I think from James, the ABL teams are limited in their. Well, look, I don't know all the ABL teams, but there's not as obviously top-heavy analytical data as you would have in a major league team. So I think 90% of the decision for the shift on Lutz would have been D. San Miguel's just inexperience. That would have been the call. So Dan actually DV does a great stats pack through, and I'm just trying to rattle through off the top of my head on those stats packs. I can't can't think of the data on shifts on those stat packs, whether there's much data on there in regards to.
There's not. There's it's starting to grow that way. MLB Advanced Media, which we work with to get our stat packs together, they're starting to add some things like that. There's no spin rates per se and no shift rates per se. There are some, obviously the standard splits are there, but that's what people are going by, the standard splits and really where the power numbers are going and where a guy pulls the ball or not, or it can go both ways. And I think that's kind of where they're coming from. James says Unsworth is great. Pitching fundamentals, that's finest. Every pitch comes in the same arm slot. No doubt. Yes. And what makes him, and again, the arm slot's part of it. He throws strikes. That's another thing. And he changes speeds. When we talked about this so many times, throwing strikes, changing speeds, your best fastball is your best changeup and vice versa. And for him, he throws those at any count, not afraid to throw them. And that's what makes him so lethal and so dominating overall. Jared says Heat guys looked tired last night and the rest of the day. Yeah, I think it'd be a huge benefit. Of course, the asterisk, they may get more rest.
Yeah, and they made, and I think I want to say it was about the sixth inning that there was just an awful play at the plate. The throw home, and it was just miles off. I think Ford Proctor was behind the dish. It was just. I think the throw came in. It was just, but it just all looked. They looked so. To quote our good friend DV, I'm so tired. They just looked. They looked tired, DV.
I've not pulled the league numbers up yet, just out of concern though. But the Heat have had 2-3 error ball games already. I think they've got 9 errors so far.
Yeah.
The defense probably needs to be cleaned up a little bit. A couple of them are hard luck errors. There was one play that I thought was scored, should have been scored infield single. It wasn't. It was scored an error on Robbie Glendening. I think it was definitely could have been an infield single, and it kind of got a tough break, off balance throw. But in general, the defense has got to get cleaned up. And I think sometimes when you're tired on your heels, that happens. So a little bit. But I want to get into one more thing. And this is going to be a little bit controversial. So I'm going to warn you guys already what's coming. These games were played in general, all but to the 7:30 local start or 7 o'clock local start, were all played for the North American television market. I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on I don't want to get in the quality of the show. There's a whole conversation that I will save for down the road, but I want to get this perspective. Now, I can tell you what I do know. It was not a top 150 show on cable TV in North America. It did not crack the top 150. Now that the sports numbers aren't out until tomorrow or maybe Saturday over here. It was also a week of unrest last night in North America. Tuesday night was a very big election in Georgia that affected the entire nation, the future presidency of Joe Biden. So that was also a lot of TBIs were there. You also got college basketball on Tuesdays and Mondays, and of course the NFL this weekend coming up. The playoffs are all on, so that's going to be a big uphill battle for the U.S. market as well. So that being said, we don't know what those numbers were. But my question to you is, look at the attendance numbers. Now, yes, it was a day game. Most of these games were played in the day, and the numbers were not real good. And by what I'm going to tell you is, there was 1,542 last night to watch Brisbane and Adelaide. I'm sorry, Brisbane and Perth, my bad. That ball game had 1,500 folks, a normal Brisbane crowd. That's a very Brisbane-like atmosphere. But your other crowds totaling, Adelaide played in front of a total all week of 956. That includes playing one game against Brisbane. Perth played, two games in Brisbane. Perth played in front of 780 prior to playing in front of the 1,500 last night. So my question to you folks is the TV audience worth it to not have folks at the ball game? Because on TV, it's clearly obvious, unless Brisbane's playing, and even then in the daytime, folks are having a hard time coming out at midday to watch their home team play. Is that worth the U.S. TV audience to not grow your game locally, domestically in Australia? That's my question to y'all. Partner, that's my question to you. I mean, I'm wondering, where is the value of this thing? Is it so important?
And look, I'll be, and I said to you in a text message yesterday, man, I watched 0% of the Heat versus Adelaide game live. Quite frankly, because I had work on it. I was out and about. I was sort of out and about. I was in the car a lot, and I texted you, DV, and said, "Boy, I think they dropped the ball by not allowing an audio option for these day part games, because there are people in cars and whatnot that you could listen to the game in the car." And I think that was it. Look, 50 people only turned up to the Adelaide Perth game, which like I get in a way, like you get that happens, but I guess it depends on what happens the year after. I don't think we could really truly answer the question right now. If you start to see merchandise being sold into North America, if you start seeing North America like audiences adapt to the game, and like if they start to if it takes a step forward to say we are the premier winter league, and maybe this is the way forward, then great. But and there was revenue from the US TV to Australia as well, which I think is what's helped fund the hub as well. But yeah, I think and AJ has just written it there as well. If you're going to do the hub during the day and you don't have an audio model, you're actually also, what you're really doing is you completely in so many ways you're making the game difficult to grow in your own country, because it's just it's hard. Like it's hard to sort of, as I say, I mean, I live and breathe the ABL. I watched not a second of the Heat and Adelaide game because I just couldn't find the time to sit and watch the game. So I think that what it does do at the moment is it makes it really difficult. I think what they are doing and the way they are broadcasting the games right now, I think they're making it very difficult to grow the game locally. I think there is a way that you can feed both markets, but again, without that audio option, it's just going to be a struggle in Perth. Because again, think about it. Like, people are driving to work, or people are, in Melbourne or Sydney, and they're driving around town, and they're driving to meetings, doing whatever, on the train, coming home. They can listen to the game, they engage in the game. But I think it is. But having said that, to get that game times in the US, and I know Mike Keeley, who's Garment Exchange, has got an office in California. His clients were saying, "Hey, I'm looking at your Garment Exchange uniforms, on primetime television in California." So, yes, I think it's good in one part, DV, to answer your question, but I think it comes at the risk of alienating your local audiences, and that's where you got to find that balance.
The audio thing, you and I championed for so long. It's being our head against the wall. We were the first ones to broadcast road audio streams. No one else has done it. I mean, no one's done it. Let me put it this way. We'd be doing it now if I was in the country. I'm not. We'd be doing it now. I mean, pure and simple. Talking Baseball Australia believes in the audio model. I know Cam Vale knows I believe in the audio model. I think what they're doing is they're trying to build this thing interest outside inward. I think it's a good goal. It's a good idea. But I worry that trying so hard outside, you're going to miss inside without that audio option. I mean, because baseball's a game, and you folks that grow up in Australia, following the Test cricket, for example. I mean, it goes on all day, but you kind of tune in, tune out on the radio. I remember you and I one day, we'd fired the barbecue up, and you and I went to the store, got some propane. We'd watched the cricket on. Cricket was on. We left. It was on the radio. We came back, had a couple beers, fired the grill up, went back inside and watched them, came out the radio. We had the game on kind of in the background. That's how baseball is in North America. Baseball is very similar to that. It's a radio game. It's a radio venue. It's what the game grew up on. It didn't have a TV deal back in the day. It was radio. It was the first sport in North America that was really mass media on the radio, on the old Mutual Network and NBC and ABC. And that's the evolution of the game, painting the picture. Vince Scully is a radio guy. The way he sounds on TV, why everybody loves his TV work, it's because he paints a picture. It's his radio background. He was a radio guy way before he was ever a TV guy. He painted the best picture. That's what you want to hear as an audio stream. And that would give you the option, a guy at work like yourself, in your car or whatever, you can quickly jump on or have the have the audio going, you can do your work and not have to watch a screen, but you've got that option. Instead, you got to lock everything down and we watch in the middle of your work day. And that's my concern.
And I think you raise an interesting point, which is probably not a topic for right now, but and from a broadcaster's perspective, and you talk about Vin Scully, from a broadcaster's point of view, it is actually so much more enjoyable to broadcast a sport on an audio platform than it is on a TV platform. It's sort of, and I guess the only way you can kind of just compare it, it's like driving an automatic car versus driving a manual car. Like, a manual car, you're under the gears, you're in control the whole time. A lot of the time when you're broadcasting on TV, you have to talk to the shot. So the director's got the shot up there, and then it's okay. I'm gonna talk about the kid getting the ice cream now because that's the shot. And a lot of the time you miss out on like when you are conscious that you're the eyes and ears of the people as well. Like, I mean, you are telling that story back through the audio medium, and it's just it is, from a broadcaster's point of view, it is so much. I think it's so much more enjoyable broadcasting on an audio platform than it is on TV. I understand, like, people want to see the game on TV. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, I think the two can exist somehow because look, you get to the point that the audio stream is syndicated as a TV stream, and you have the home and the away call, which I think would be great as well. And who knows, Steve? We could rattle on about the enthusiasm of radio. Trevor.
A lot of stuff here, but anyway, that's my take. That I was concerned the attendance numbers were painful. A couple things here. I'm going to get to our did you know in a moment here, but Brisbane's ballpark, yes, smaller park, but that was a great crowd for them last night there in that Perth game, 1,500. Watching before 9 p.m. is always yes, and Bob, good to see you, mate, too. It was good for me in North America. But I think, too, and here's where we get to this whole, you and I believe in the event, the festival, the whole make this thing an event. I didn't get the feeling that was an event. It was a TV event to watch in North America. And what was really cool, I'll tell you the really cool thing was to go on Facebook, YouTube, and the Perth Facebook and the ABL Facebook and the YouTube page. There was a lot of chat going on. It was really cool to fire off tidbits for these folks. They really got into it. There's a lot of potential new fans we could reach, and some of them are watching us now. We are glad you're here. Yeah. But again, to make it an event locally where, hey, this is a thing to do. If you're not working today and you got nothing going on, you love baseball, get your ass out here. Let's have a good time. Yeah. Let's turn it into an event. And that's what this league over the years, and that's something you and I believe in, that minor league model of making it an event. And that was a missed opportunity. And I'm not, I love the fact it's on North America, but I hate to see those numbers. Like, gosh, I mean, I know people work, but 50 people, come on. Growing it in Australia first, yes. Again, I don't mind getting at 500 to watch. There you go. Let's see here. If revenue is really high in the U.S., then I guess, yeah, and that's the thing. We won't know that, but I'm just telling you what I know initially. And as a sporting guy, I'm going to be honest with you. I love baseball. It's what I do for a living. But I'm going to tell you, if the Perth Heat are playing opposite the wild card round in the NFL in North America, I'll probably check the score.
And you actually,
I mean, that's just the way it is.
You actually bring up a good point as well, DV, because like even yesterday, there was a little rain affected, but the third cricket test, Australia versus India, starts as well. So that that's on TV from in the West 7:30 to 3 o'clock. So 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the East Coast. You've got test match cricket, which is so insanely ingrained in the culture of. So you're going up against by playing daytime baseball locally at this time of year. You're going up against exactly that, DV. You're going up against the NFL playoffs in the reality of it, and it's going to be hard to get audience. But
I'm going to give you guys a little something. This is fun. We'll get back to some. By the way, Talking Baseball Australia Live, baseball's best mate, Dan Vaughn, Paul Morgan with you. In case you missed it earlier, we're not sure what the status is. I'll check my email in a moment here to see where we're at, but we have not heard anything yet. But we did get word that the Brisbane is going into a lockdown at 6 p.m. local time. We're not sure that affects the scheduling for the weekend. But this is something that came up in our game notes this week on Talking Baseball Australia. And I encourage you guys, every game we put these notes up on our Facebook page. There's a link to the PDF. This is what we do. We try to paint a picture and inform you guys. A little did you know. So let me give a little did you know music. Here we go.
That little summertime jazz, David.
Little did you know. 2 nights ago, a very good start for Nathan Wiles, young man who was out of Kansas City, Overland Park, was a Oklahoma Sooner. Now he's a Tampa Ray farmhand. Also, that very same night in North America was the Heisman Trophy presentation. The Heisman Trophy is the collegiate award given out to the top college football gridiron standout in college football. And I begin to realize that, wait a second, Nathan was a teammate at University of Oklahoma, actually played at University of Oklahoma with this gentleman right here. That's Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is the 2018 Heisman Trophy winner from the University of Oklahoma. Okay, not a big deal, right? That's they went to school together, right? Yeah, that's kind of cool little tidbit, right? I'm going to take you one step further. Not only were those two gentlemen at the same university together, but Mr. Murray and Mr. Wiles were teammates for the Sooner baseball team. There he is right there. That's Kyler Murray in his Sooner kit right there. There you go. Give me a whole shot of him. There he is right there, Kyler Murray. There he is. And Nathan, as I mentioned, went to University of Oklahoma, was an all Big 12 member there, dominating career. Big 12 is probably, along with the Southeastern Conference, the two best baseball conferences in North America for Division I. There's a shot of Nathan right here in his Sooner kit as well. And here's one more tidbit about that whole situation. Murray now, and in case you guys don't know this, is now a big-time star in the NFL. He is the Arizona Cardinals quarterback. The Cardinals, of course, Murray is probably the new breed of quarterback. And one more note about that, not only is he the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, he's also the only player ever taken in the first round of the NFL draft, number 1 overall, and the first round of the Major League draft, number 9th overall, of the Oakland Athletics back in 2018-19. And there was a big debate. Would he stay and play baseball? Would he go play football? He went the football route, but he is the only athlete in North America ever to be a number one draft pick in the NFL, a number one draft pick in the Major League Baseball draft. And Murray was a teammate at Oklahoma for not just one or 2 days, but like for 2 seasons with Nathan Wiles, the OU Sooners. I didn't know that. Did you know that, partner?
I only did because you told me the other day, no, I did not. Prior to that, I did not know. But yeah, Kyler Murray, of course, I don't think, how serious was that debate back in the day if he'd stay at Oakland? I mean, of course you're going to go to the NFL, aren't you? Like, I would have thought, like, you'd take that bigger money earlier.
There were some that thought he would go the baseball route. It seems like, in general, that's the safer route because your body he's a running quarterback and your body takes a pounding. A lot of folks were torn. I got a dear mate of mine who is works for him as one of his actually was his coach locally. He's actually from Allen, Texas. Kyler Murray is, and he was Allen. Which Google Allen, Texas football. You'll see a stadium that looks like something out of an NFL stadium. I mean, it seats like 25,000. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Brad is state with the suites and all the hospitality. Anyway, Kyler Murray, this dear mate of mine, Mark Johnson, I'll just go ahead and throw his name out there. He was at my brother's wedding. Anyway, story short, Mark coached him playing baseball growing up and still very close to him. And the feeling was that Murray would probably go the smarter route and go the professional baseball route, smarter being health-wise. But he got the big deal at the NFL. He's also going to make that second contract. It's going to be huge. I mean, he's going to be making big-time, Patrick Mahomes type money, I would think, his next time up in about another year and a half. So there you go. That's a little did you know right there. We'll give you a little did you know jam as we always got to give you something there. Tie a little Heisman Trophy and OU and ABL together right there with a little did you know. There we go, folks.
Maybe you never know. If he chooses baseball again, maybe the ABL becomes his home for a while. So.
Yeah, well, Kyler Murray, if he decides to make a comeback, perhaps we can get him on in the ABL. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool because it was interesting. The same night that Wiles was pitching was the same night the Heisman Trophy Award went out, which would have been 2 years ago. Murray won, and they were teammates at OU that previous year in the Big 12. And I thought it was kind of cool, a little tie-in there. Let's see here. Great stuff, everyone. Oh, that's me. I got to say, the Brisbane Hub games were great quality. There we go. They were great.
I agree with them.
Yes, the play on the field was great. The video I thought was fine. Maybe as a broadcaster, I'm always looking at ways to make the show a little cooler, like things like that we just did. But I thought the video was fine. I thought Camry's show yesterday on video was really good. I thought.
Yeah.
Let's see. Billy, not Billy being smartest pick. No, it wasn't. Isn't Allen Nolan Wright? No, he's from Alvin, Texas. Alvin is down by Houston, down by Pearland, just south of Houston, between Houston and Galveston is where Pearland is. I'm saying where Alvin is, Alvin/Pearland, but he's from Alvin, Texas.
Allen. Same thing.
It sounds the same. Allen is north of, just north of. You leave Dallas County into Collin County. It's a big suburb, and again, it's huge football. But yeah, no, I got you though. I saw you though. Partner, final thoughts as we scatter shoot here.
It sounds like the show's gone. Where are we next week, David?
Where are we next week? Where are we next week?
I think we are in Adelaide next week. I think Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, I think Canberra, and I think Melbourne are all in Brisbane next week. And I think, I think the show goes down to Brisbane. So the show goes to Adelaide. I think they get the 5 teams there. I think probably Sydney doesn't make it. I just got a news alerts for more corona cases in New South Wales. I think it's the 5 teams go to Adelaide and they fight it out to the bitter end in Adelaide. That's what my prediction is, DB.
Yeah, and I think that's a good move. And I think the league, again, we expect the league to announce. They may do it sooner, but we thought that the league would announce something on Tuesday for the postseason and what would happen post Adelaide, but I could see them making a shift right now. And I feel the same way. I get the feeling there's one more, we're going to call it Hail Mary out there. There's one more last ditch ever to get this whole thing in and get some semblance of games in. And I think the best move would be, and you've got, and here's the thing, every step of the way, you've got a little further along. So maybe they move to Adelaide, get the whole thing in. That's my thinking.
I just think they have to do it. I think now, I think it's, yes, you want all the teams to have a shot at the revenue and stakes, but I think, in realistically, Adelaide till the 10th, and really you want it generally wrapped up. You've got a 4-week window there, so maybe it's 2 weeks in Adelaide, maybe it's 2 weeks in Perth, but that's that, DV. But we leave to fight on.
I'll keep you guys posted on our Twitter and on our Facebook. We'll keep it going, and we get anything great, we'll let you know. We sort of planned a Brecky and baseball postgame show for the weekend, but I don't know if we're going to have that now. So it's all up in the air. It's all up in the air. It's like this show run sheet.
Run sheet. Just get rid of it, DV. Anyway, we'll be back next week.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Partner, appreciate it as always, and have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Everyone commenting as well. It's always nice to have people chime in as well. So thanks so much. Look forward to next week.
Yeah, you bet. There he is, Paul. There he is, Paul Morgan from Perth. I tell you, I'm very fortunate to do what I do for a living, and I sound okay because he's great. He just makes me sound that much better, and I appreciate Paul. Yes, good everybody joining us, and I echo what Paul said. Appreciate you guys joining us. It means a lot. I love your comments. I wish I could have gotten to some more of them. I'm just seeing if I didn't miss anything here. But I love having you guys there. Again, in case you missed the news, the top of the show, Brisbane's going to a lockdown at 6 o'clock local time there in Queensland. We don't know how that's going to affect the ABL going forward. I've checked my message board one more time before we go off here, and nothing I've seen so far. We reached out. Perth, the official word from Perth in the last 15 minutes was they have no idea what's going on yet. They had not made a call. We thought we'd delay enough to make a call on that. They haven't, but we'll tweet that out for you. If there is anything really relevant, we'll get that tweet out to you. We'll also post something on Facebook as well on our Facebook page. And when we find out, we will definitely do that for you. Again, thanks for joining us. A lot of you folks stopped by who I saw that were on YouTube and Facebook this week during the hub, and I'm glad you guys did. Hope you'll give us a listen as well. Paul and I it's a labor of love for us. We've been doing this since 2012. Some folks, came and gone since then, and we're still going to be doing it. I'm going to still be committed to being over there, being a part of the broadcast and part of growing our league and growing our game and growing our footprint of our game in Australia. It's something I firmly believe in. I know Paul believes in. But what makes it all worthwhile is the fact we got great folks like you. The fans of the ABL are unique. I was telling this to some folks on the American Association podcast this week. You folks are unique. You're passionate. You care. You support the league. You may be a Brisbane fan or a Melbourne fan or whoever, but you support the league. You want the league to do well. You want this thing to thrive. Yeah, on the field, you may want to kick Canberra's tail, but after the game, you'll have a beer with them and celebrate the great game and what we can all do together to further this sport along the way. So I tell this to my KC folks, I tell you guys every day as well. Let's be better tomorrow than we were today. Better ABL fans tomorrow than we were today. Let's be better people tomorrow than we were today. Let's love more. Been a crazy year so far, and who knows what's going to happen next. But if we keep being better folks, showing more love, more empathy, just be better all around, have a positive attitude, we're going to be fine going forward. So blessings to all of you guys. We'll see you all next week on the show. Again, 5 o'clock in North America on Thursday night, 7 a.m. in Western Australia. And, of course, adjust your timepiece in the East at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, depending where you're at, or the half hour if you're in South Australia. You know what I'm talking about, right? Adjust your timepiece accordingly. We'll have the guys join us then. We'll look forward to hearing from all you folks again, and we'll have some exciting stuff for you going forward. On behalf of Paul Morgan and all you folks, much love. We'll see y'all next week. Good night, everybody.
Buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its fruit.